There's less than 3 weeks left till the November 5th elections. And one thing has remained constant through the entire campaign. Every time they're asked, voters express time and again that their number one concern, the number one issue that they will be basing their vote on, is the economy. And that's something we're going to talk about today, because there's a lot of misunderstandings, a lot of confusion, a lot of truths and half-truths being thrown around out there. So let's move on to the economy, what it means to your vote, and why it's important, and how you're going to see your way through it to make your best choice and best decision. By the way, I hope nobody minds the facial scruff that I have going here. I recently shaved off the beard I've had for several years, and I can't decide if I want to grow it back or not. So I shave some days and not others, so bear with me as I try to figure it out. Let's move on. Now, the most recent poll, Gallup conducted a poll literally a week ago, October 8th, and the results were not that surprising. The economy, 52% of the people said it was extremely important, and 38% said very important, being a total of 90% of the voters said that it was important or very important to who they'd vote for. No matter what the candidates are saying, that's number one on the list, followed by democracy in the U.S., terrorism and national security, Supreme Court justices and how candidates are picked, immigration, education, healthcare, gun policy, abortion. So here you have the Democrats trying to make abortion a main issue. It's well down there on the list. Donald Trump keeps talking immigration. It's number 5 on the list. So economy is a key to this election, and people need to understand and have a good grounding in what the policies being advocated by different candidates mean. I've studied economic theory for a number of years, and it can get pretty confusing. Terms and definitions are argued about all the time, but I'm going to keep it really simple and talk about terms and definitions that we all commonly use and all understand. For most of the 20th century, political economic models have been dominated by 2 specific views. The progressive left, which is the Democratic Party traditionally, and the conservative right, which has usually been the Republican Party. The Democratic Party is perceived as representing social justice issues. They're considered pro-labor and working class. They believe in wealth redistribution. They stand up for individual rights and liberties, protecting the disadvantaged, and economic equality. Meanwhile, the Republicans champion family and Christian values. They're considered pro-business and corporate. They believe in the trickle-down theory of economics. They believe in economic freedom and choice, capitalism, and free markets. And there are, of course, a lot of exceptions to this, but generally speaking, the 2 parties have evolved to represent these 2 different constituencies. Now, before we look at the economic campaign promises of Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, you've got to understand, in all likelihood, many of the things that they're proposing will never come into being. They won't have the support in Congress or the Senate, or they'll just run out of time and not have enough political collateral. It's not unusual. Election after election, politicians stand up and say they're going to do this, they're going to do that. What you can really get out of it is that's the direction they're going to be going into. So it's important to get an overview of what they and their parties represent, because when they do get economic policy, whatever does get passed, it'll likely follow the philosophical background and tendencies that their party has. So, on the left, they have a strong belief in regulating business and industry, and they do that for safety reasons, consumer protection, and environmental issues. On the right, meanwhile, they really believe in deregulation of business and industry. They think that they can self-regulate themselves and market forces will keep them in check. Over on the left, you've got government spending programs are advocated to stimulate the economy, while on the right side, they really believe in balanced budgets and minimal government spending, keeping government spending very low. As far as tax cuts go, the progressives tend to advocate tax cuts primarily for wage earners and for working poor, while on the right, the conservatives tend to want tax cuts for investment and capital gain, believing that will spur investment, thereby leading to economic growth. Now, let's move on to the specifics of what Harris and Trump are proposing in the campaign. I found a really helpful resource, a comprehensive, nonpartisan comparison of Harris and Trump's economic proposals that was prepared by American Century Investments for their clients. I have a link to this chart and to the company in the comments below. Please visit them. So, let's see what we've got here. They do a really great job breaking things down over 4 pages into categories like taxes, corporate and individual, trade policy, economic regulation, the Federal Reserve, healthcare spending, energy renewable policies, defense and foreign aid spending, technology, industrials, and the economic implication of immigration policies. As you can see, there are literally dozens of proposals, but we're going to zoom in on a couple that are the most impactful or perhaps controversial. First of all, looking at taxes, we got corporate taxes. Kamala Harris wants to take corporate taxes and raise them from 21% up to 28%, while Trump is proposing to decrease them from 21 down to 20 and 15% for companies manufacturing products in the U.S. Definitely, Trump will be doing more for corporations than Kamala would. Kamala would be taxing them more, Trump would be taxing them less. Though Harris is proposing increasing the deduction for new business startups to $50,000. As far as individual taxes go, both want to extend the tax cuts that were established during Trump's administration. However, Trump would extend them for everybody, and Kamala Harris would put a cap that anyone making more than $400,000 per year would lose those tax cuts. Trump wants to stop the tax subsidies for the Health Care Act. They both want to eliminate income taxes on tips, but Kamala says only for people making up to $75,000. Now, Kamala has some more things here, which Trump doesn't. She wants to impose a wealth tax of 25% on all income higher than $100 million per year. She wants to raise the top capital gains tax to 33% from 22.4% on incomes exceeding $1 million. And she wants to raise the child tax credit to $6,000 for families with children less than a year old. She also wants to provide a $25,000 tax credit for first-time home buyers over 4 years and provide new federal funding to spur housing construction. And finally, she wants to expand the earned income tax credit for low-income families. Over on Trump's side, he wants to make car loan interest tax deductible. He's proposing expanding the child tax credit to $5,000. So obviously, Kamala's doing a lot more on that point of view as far as extending tax cuts to working class individuals. And she's proposing increasing taxes on the millionaire class. Trump, on the other hand, is far more keeping it status quo. When it comes to economic policy related to trade, there are a lot of differences between the two. Kamala Harris is talking about targeted tariffs aimed at geopolitical rivals, including Chinese technology products, and increasing investment restrictions in key Chinese sectors that are tied to national security. Meanwhile, Trump wants to implement a 60% tariff on all goods from China. He also wants to increase investment restrictions on key Chinese sectors tied to national security, but he also wants to have restrictions on semiconductor exports to China, revoke China's favored trade status, and phase out imports of essential Chinese goods. As far as other countries go, he wants to implement a 10 to 20% across-the-board tariff, reinstitute tariffs on European Union steel and aluminum, consider removing the U.S. from the World Trade Organization, and pass the Trump Reciprocal Trade Act. We're going to talk about Trump and his tariffs a little bit later on. As far as regulating and controlling the economy, Kamala Harris is proposing to raise the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour from $7.25. She wants to expand student debt relief, ban price gouging in the grocery industry, and expand antitrust initiatives and enforcement. Trump, on the other hand, wants to reduce and roll back actions on consumer fees and other consumer financial protection bureau activities. He wants to challenge pending bank regulations, cut regulations substantially across the board, categorize more civil workers as political appointees rather than employees, reduce barriers and long approval times for mergers and acquisitions, eliminate regulations targeting energy-efficient appliances and products, and eliminate the U.S. Department of Education. Now, a few of the other major economic proposals. Under healthcare, both candidates are talking about reducing the price of drugs. Fundamentally, Kamala Harris is talking about expanding Medicare and Medicaid, including wiping out $7 billion medical debt for 3 million qualifying Americans, while Trump is really talking about reducing Medicare and adding a work requirement to Medicaid. Under energy and renewables, Kamala says that they want to extend the electrical vehicle incentives to cover commercial transportation as well and expand the carbon capture credits. Trump's taken a very different approach. He wants to offer tax incentives for gas and oil drilling, though he does want to expand the carbon capture credits as well, but he would eliminate the $7,500 electric vehicle tax credit. He's going to attempt to roll back the green energy tax incentives in the Inflation Reduction Act, and he wants to reduce and roll back fuel efficiency requirements for cars and automobiles. Under defense spending, both of them want to increase spending on national defense. But there's a big difference here. Kamala wants to maintain financial aid and armed support to Ukraine, and Trump wants specifically to reduce or eliminate that support to the Ukraine. As far as NATO goes, Kamala wants to reiterate our support for NATO, and Trump wants to ensure that other countries are paying at least 2% of their GDP on defense. So there you have it, the major proposals from both candidates about what economic policies they hope to implement, and they're meant to keep the economy strong and to help the finances and pocketbook of you and your family. From an economic point of view, there's really only two of the policies in there that I have a real bone to pick. One with each candidate. In the beginning, Kamala Harris talked a lot about controlling grocery prices by setting price controls. Price controls don't work. They've been tried dozens of times around the world by all kinds of countries. All kinds of governments have tried to put in price controls and price restrictions. They do not work. They lead to shortages, and they don't cause the price to come down. They end up drying up the marketplace. The reason that so many communist countries have supermarkets that are empty, the shelves are empty, and there's just nothing there, is because they control prices. Price controls don't work, period. Now, on the other hand, we've got Donald Trump and his absolute insistence that he is going to make America rich again by using tariffs. That is nothing but poppycock. It's insane. He doesn't know what he's talking about. It's almost unanimously agreed by legitimate economists and almost every business organization and every pro-business newspaper that tariffs are a horrible idea and that Donald Trump's proposals are just wrong and will end up costing America millions of jobs and billions of dollars. And in fact, the car that you buy right now for $30,000 is going to cost you $50,000. Okay? Maybe somewhere down the road it'll pay off, but that's what you're going to be facing next year. Walmart stores are going to disappear off the face of America. No more going out to buy inexpensive items. It won't exist anymore. Amazon, poof, it's gone. American jobs throughout the country are going to disappear, and consumers are going to be paying massive price increases on everything. It's factual, it's true, and Donald Trump, I have to say this, is too stupid to understand that. Everyone's tried to tell him, his advisors have tried to tell him, he just won't listen. And to tell you the truth, that's dangerous. Another thing that you have to consider when you look at the candidates and their economic promises, their campaign promises, is where's the money going to come from to pay for all these programs they're talking about? You know, it's surprising. Donald Trump is supposed to be the conservative, the pro-business person, But all the estimates that have been done by various groups and organizations about the cost of their campaign promises show time and again that Trump's going to be spending likely double the amount added to the deficit that Kamala Harris's plans would be. For all the programs that Kamala Harris wants to put in, she's finding a way to pay for it. Well, not to pay for it, but to pay for part of it. Trump has no way to pay for it whatsoever, and nothing's going to be coming in to cover it. Here are some figures from the Committee for Responsible Federal Budget that show the costs that will be incurred and the impact on the deficit of Kamala Harris's proposed plans and Donald Trump's plans. And yeah, his ideas and his proposals are going to cost double what Kamala Harris's would. That just isn't very pro-conservative. This idea, this belief by people that Trump is better equipped to handle economic matters than Kamala Harris just doesn't have no basis in reality. A lot of it comes from a belief and a thought and a perception that the economy was so good under Trump. But that just wasn't true. Donald Trump, when he got elected, inherited a really healthy, growing economy from Barack Obama. And that carried him a long way until the COVID disaster when things fell apart. It wasn't because of his policies. He actually increased the deficits in record amounts beyond what had ever been seen before him. So you have all these conservatives and pro-free enterprise people saying we've got to stop Kamala, when in fact it's Donald Trump who's a socialist in the crowd. It's Donald Trump who's defying every principle of free market and free enterprise that exists out there. That's a wrap for today. I want to thank you very much for watching. You know, I love making this content. I really enjoy doing it. I'm 70 years old. I'm absolutely determined to make it on YouTube, but I can't do it without your help. Look, what you got to do is like the videos, subscribe to the channel, and yeah, send me your comments. I love to read what you've got to say, and I respond when I can. I'm going to close off by playing you a short clip that I prepared a week ago when I was asked by someone to tell them, who did I think had the better economic policies for America's future? Kamala Harris or Donald Trump? And I think the answer that I gave them was surprising. Here goes. Whose economic policies would be best for America? Harris or Trump? Well, let's ask those people who have all the money. Wall Street, the stock market. Stock indices are hitting record highs day after day after day. What does that mean? Those people who put their money where their mouth is, they're saying, look, if Harris is elected, the economy is not going to tank. Hey, if Trump gets elected, the economy is not going to tank. They're not worried. They feel good about the economic future, at least short term, for the American economy. So, don't make that your basis of voting. Vote for who you think, but not based on the economy, because based on Wall Street, it's a coin toss. Subscribe, damn it. It's a great channel.